Today on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the Roadmaster InvisiBrake supplemental braking system, part number RM-8700. Now this is what our InvisiBrake looks like when it's installed. You can see it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. This is going to be a more permanent application. There's not going to be any on and off switches, so as soon as you hook up to your RV, it's going to be ready to go. It can be easily mounted, as you can see here. Customer wanted it mounted in the back, or it can be mounted under the front seat. And you can use this system with RVs that have air brakes or non-air brakes. It'll work with both. Now here on your driver's side, you can see how little space it takes up. The only thing you really can see is the pulley system that is attached to your brake pedal, whereas some of your other systems, you would have a big box that you would have to take out of your vehicle and put back in when you wanted to use it. All of your wires are hidden underneath your panels, underneath your carpet. And again, you don't have any on and off switches, so once you get to your destination, you just unhook your vehicle from your RV and you can use your vehicle normal. So now we'll show you how the InvisiBrake system works on the pedal. When the brakes are applied in the RV, it applies the brakes inside your towed vehicle at the same time. Now you're going to have an adjustment knob here and a pressure gauge. This is going to give you the correct pressure for towing your vehicle. Now you're going to want to take your RV down the road a few times and test out to see how much pressure is on your brakes. And if you need to adjust it, this is where you're going to do it. Now all of your power from your InvisiBrake is either running to your battery or running down to your 6-pole down here. Then you have your umbilical cord, which is running over to the 7-pole on your RV. One good thing about this system is that while you're in tow mode, you're towing the vehicle, it will actually trickle charge your battery. Now in the driver's seat of the RV, when you're towing your vehicle, you'll have an indicator light that's going to tell you when the brakes are applied in your towed vehicle. So the first thing we need to do is we need to mount our control box. Now the customer, because he intends on taking this Jeep off-roading and he's got kids that climb in and out of the back of it, he doesn't want this put under the seat, so he decided he wanted it mounted in the back of the vehicle. So what we're going to do is we're going to mount it about right here. So the good thing about these is these can be mounted anywhere. They can be mounted, you can mount it up against the back of the seat if you want. It can be mounted upside down, so it doesn't necessarily have to be on a flat surface. Next thing we do is we need to figure out where to mount our cylinder. Typically, they would go under the seat or in the back seat under this panel. If we put this here, because this is a 2-door, if we put this here, we're going to have a lot of extra wire that's going to be pulling on the brake. And what you don't want to do is you don't want this twisted, because this is a metal wire. So we got to try to mount it back toward the back a little bit farther. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to take out this seat. It's going to give us a lot of extra room to work. Take a screwdriver, this is just a trim panel tool, pop off that cap. You're going to have one here, and you're going to have 4 bolts to mount. You're going to have 2 here, and you're going to have 2 in the back. And it's possible you're going to have some wires underneath with some plugs you need to unplug. We're going to be using an 18mm socket. So now we're going to have another cap under here. You're going to pull it off the same way. And then even though your bolts access, you can access it here, it's a little hard to get this inside. So what we're going to do is we're going to take that out. We're going to be using a T25 star bit. And we're just going to remove this screw right here. So now we'll take a short socket, because we can't get our drill down right here. We'll take a short socket, 18mm again. Take this plastic piece off. There's another star bit right here in the front. And then we'll just pop this panel off here. If you notice, there's not a lot of room here to get to this bolt. On a Jeep, if you push the seat back, pull the lever on the side of the seat itself, and that allows for your passengers in the back to be able to get in. Now we can go straight down on it. And we're going to have one plug here on the bottom of our seat. We're going to unplug that, and then we can remove our seat. So what I did is I found a location for my cylinder under this center panel toward the back. Now, as you can see, I've got this line where it's going to run underneath the driver's seat, and this is going to give me an idea of how much I'm going to have to mount my wire here, or my pulley on the back of my brake. So this is going to give me a general idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my my bracket. It's going to hook to my brake pedal here. I'm going to measure it out to see what I'm going to need to remove. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this part here. This is going to be where my brake pedal arm is going to be laying on the back, like this. And what it looks like is this very first hole here and this hole are going to be the only two holes that I need, so I can actually cut off the rest of this. And I'm going to do that on both of these. I just use a grinder with the cutting wheel and cut off where I needed to cut off. Now with this bare metal here, even though it's going to be on the inside, with your foot being up there, it's still susceptible to rusting, getting wet from the elements. So you can take some paint and paint it. I happen to have a black paint marker, and I'm just going to go over this bare metal with that paint marker just to cover it up. Now we'll take our two brackets, our two bolts, go ahead and put it on our brake pedal like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to snug these up. We don't want to tighten them all the way, so that we can adjust it once we get our wire and everything hooked up. Next, we'll take a 10mm socket and our V4 Allen wrench, and we're going to snug these up. Our little bracket that's going to our pulley is hooked onto our wire. We're going to take this bottom nut, we're going to take it all the way off. This one, we're going to go down about halfway on here. So we'll take our wire, feed it through, take our nut, put it on, take our other nut that we took all the way off, and we're going to tighten it on the back side of the nut. So what we're looking here is where we mount our pulley. We want to make sure that this here, when the pedal is depressed, doesn't hit the pulley. So we're going to mount it just a little bit off to the side. I'm almost thinking that maybe this way, because our wire's running over this way already, that this side might be a better place to go. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut a slit in the carpet and mount this to the metal. So now we have a general location of where our pulley needs to be. We're going to take this back off. I'm going to pull my floor mat out. I'm going to move my carpet. Now, this being a Jeep, this is fairly simple. You have a little plastic fastener here. It just screws on. We're just going to peel this back. Then we're going to have 2 of the same plastic fasteners up underneath along the firewall. We'll just set this out of our way. So now we'll hook our pulley back up. I think we'll put it right there. And the rest of this, I think get tucked in underneath here. One of our self-tapping screws. So now we got a good spot. Go ahead and put in our other screws. Let's show you how it works. Next, we're going to take 2 more of our self-tapping screws. We're going to take this little bracket right here, and that's going to hold down the end of this because this wire needs to come straight out of there. So we're going to take this, and if you look at the end, this fits right on there like that. We want to have just a little bit of slack in our line, just enough where that ball moves. That way, because if it's too tight, it's going to have, your brakes are going to be on all the time, and you don't want that. So you want a little bit of play. I got a little bit of extra. When I lay my carpet on, it's going to pull that tight enough. It's like a good spot to mount it. I'm just going to take a paint marker. That way, if it happens to slip out of the way, I know where my spot is. And I'm just going to mark the top. Line it up with those marks. Take one of my self-tapping screws. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to peel back this carpet. Peel it back from under the back seat here. And take my small airline tube, and you can see the end here that is twisted up. I'm going to save that for the back because I'll need to cut some off. I'm going to take this. I'm going to feed it inside here. Airline tube here. Straighten it out. And we're going to run it under the carpet right back to the back. What I did is I just had some bigger airline tube that I had laying around the shop. Just going to run it straight under my carpet, right up to the front, or to the front of the back seat. Tube that I'm going to run to the back, I'll put it on the inside of this. I'm going to take some electrical tape. I'm just going to put a little bit of tape on there just to hold it while I pull it through. Now we'll go to the back and pull it through. Seat down. There you can see my airline tube is pretty much hidden. I can tuck it down under this if I want to. My brake box is going to sit right here. This is going to run into the back of it. So you can see here, this is my airline tube. I'm going to make sure I give myself enough that it's not going to get kinked up. And if I keep it toward the center here, nobody's feet will be on it. So I'll go ahead and lay my carpet back down. Make sure we have a nice fit for everything. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch airline tube, and you're going to have part of a rubber hose in your kit. You're going to put it on one end, and the other end is going to go on the back of your control box on this big spot here. I'm not going to hook it up yet, because once you hook it up there, it's pretty hard to get off if you need to get it off. So now I'm going to go back, I'm going to fold my seat back forward again. And for this line, I'm going to try to run this one along the side panels up to the front. And there's a rubber grommet up there on the firewall that we're going to try to get to. So we're going to run this one different than this one. So I just want to give myself a straight line to run my 1/4 inch. Now I'm just going to take this on here and we'll pull it through. I just set my rubber hose, just kind of pushing on just a little bit, just enough to hold it. And I ran it behind my seat belt. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay my seat down. I want to make sure that I'm not pinching my line here with any part of my seat when it hits down here. Go ahead and set it in place. Put pressure on it. That way, kind of simulates somebody sitting in the seat. And we can see that we have room here, so we don't have to worry about pinching it. So now we're going to pull out these here so that we can run our airline tube underneath of it. I'm just using a trim panel tool here just so I can get enough grip on it to pull it with my fingers. Take my airline tube, I'm going to go underneath, I'm going to run it right through here. I'm going to follow these existing lines. So now we'll just take the rest of it and run it up like this. And we'll go ahead and put this back in place. And start with this one. Then we'll just replace our fasteners. Now, what I did is I took my red airline tube and I ran through a grommet that's up here that you're not going to be able to see. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my airline tube that I'm running back to my brake controller and I'm going to tape it on here. I'm going to pull it up through the rubber grommet. So what we're going to do is you can see our brake booster here and our lines coming out of it and kind of wrapping around and going up. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to cut this and we're going to see what size our hose is. Now, up here on the line, there's another check valve. So what we need to do is we need to stay in between our booster and this check valve. Once we cut the line, we're going to figure out what size hose it is. And we're going to have two different sizes. We're going to have a T and a check valve. This is going to be for the smaller size hose. And you'll have one for a larger size hose. We just need to see which one we're going to use. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it right in this straight area here. So now we'll take our T connector and we'll push it inside the hose. So now my airline tube that I ran up here from my box is going to go right there on the end of that T. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this off. I'm going to be using airline tube cutter. You don't want to use pliers because what it's going to do is it'll pinch this, and if you pinch it, then it's going to reduce the air pressure going through there and your equipment may not work correctly. However, you can find one of these on our website, part number AL10530. And make sure you got a nice flat, it's not pinched or kinked. Now you're going to get a 1/4 inch piece of tubing. We're going to go ahead and cut that in half. We're going to take one end and then go onto our hose here. And this end will go onto our T, like that. So our other half is going to be on the other end of our line. It's going to go into our InvisiBrake system. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my check valve, and it's going to have arrows on it. And it's going to tell you which way your airflow goes. From the brake booster, the air flows this way. That line goes towards the engine. Push it into place, and we'll get our other end and put it into place like that. So we got all that back together. We can zip tie all this back to the line again. Next, we're going to take our breakaway switch line, which is going to have a plug like this on one end, and on the other end you're going to have this plug which goes to this, and you're going to have a red and a black wire. We're going to route them to the front, but first we're going to take this and we're going to plug it into the correct location on the back of our InvisiBrake control box. We're going to get our general area, and then we're going to route all of this up to the front under the driver's seat. Take this, get it underneath of our carpet. So now we'll take, while we're here, we're going to take our brake signal wires. Those are our tail lights, our running lights, and our ground wire. We're going to go ahead and hook it into the back of our box here. And we're going to route it with our other wires. What I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a little hole here in the firewall, just big enough for this grommet. Then I'm going to run all these wires through that hole. The reason I'm doing that is because the rubber grommet that he's got in the firewall up top, he uses this for an off-road vehicle occasionally, so he's got a lot of stuff that's running through there already, and I don't think we're going to get all this to go through. So we're going to take a step bit, and I'm just going to go one size at a time until I get that grommet to fit in there. This grommet is not included in your kit. So what we did is this grommet actually comes one piece. What we did is we sliced it open and put our wires inside of it. And you want to make sure that this lip is going to be on the inside of the vehicle. So I'll push that down, and I'm going to start feeding my wires through the hole. Where I ran through my firewall, went up behind my wheel well. What I did is the same thing I did before. I took an airline tube, ran it straight down from here, down to where my wires were coming out, and I just reverse pulled it out, and it pulled all my wires right here out the top. And once I get everything stretched out, I'm just going to find a way to route it. I'm going to follow this line here, find a way to route it through here to do what I need to do on the front of the vehicle. I have my power wire and my ground wire because that's got to run over to the battery. I went ahead and ran my wire over top of this one, under here, and I got it to fit underneath here. Now what I had to do to fit this end through this corner, so I just kind of had to shave it a little bit, just enough to get it through there. So now what we're going to do is this wire that's already bundled up, it's going to a 4-pole connector. It's coming out the front of the vehicle. This one here is the one that's hooked up to our InvisiBrake system in the back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tie this into that. And we're going to cut all these in half. Go ahead and split these. And then we're going to take a wire that's running from our InvisiBrake. Go ahead and cut it off. Go ahead and connect our wires here. And then we're going to take these. We're going to match up our colors. We'll take one of our included butt connectors. Put it on one end. down. We're going to do that with all our remaining wires here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to connect all these into our color matched ones. The only thing we're not going to do yet is we're not going to do the white one. We actually are going to splice in another ground. So now we're going to take this, tie it on here. It's going to go into the other end of our butt connector from our other two white ones. So we'll take our included ring terminal. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and wrap this electrical tape. I'm going to take all this, kind of bundle it up here. We'll take one of our self-tapping screws. Now you just want your ground tight enough that it's not going to move. You don't want it so tight that you break your ring terminal off. As I got my box set up here, and I closed my door to make sure that this wasn't going to hit my door, and my door would close fully. And I took a paint marker and I marked the spot there. So now I can move this, put my bolt in there, and you see how these are, I'll be able to slide it right on and then tighten my bolt down. We'll take one of our self-tapping screws. Slide our box into place. Go ahead and put one in here. And our box is in place. Now I'll go ahead and hook up my 1/4-inch airline tube. It's going to be going in this second hole here. And we want to push it on. You can see it's not going to come off. And we can take our smaller airline tube. And it's going to go in that spot. But we need to cut that down a little bit. We're going to take it and we're just going to push it in to the hole. Nice fit. Now we can put all of our stuff back in the back here. Now keep in mind these blue wires here are not, they don't have anything to do with the InvisiBrake. These are to a speaker box that the customer had in the back of his vehicle. We just removed it to give us a little more room to work. So for our breakaway switch, as you can see, this customer has an aftermarket bumper. He uses this Jeep for off-roading, a little bit of rock climbing, and we didn't want this breakaway switch to get tore up. So I took a long bracket and modified it. Now, you can find one of these long brackets on our website, part number 18136. What I did is I modify it so it will sit inside the bumper here and it'll be protected by everything. So, this is how I did it. And it's going to sit right there. Now we'll put our hose clamp on. And you can use a socket. I'm just using a flathead screwdriver. We'll tighten it down. Now we'll take our plug from our breakaway. But you can see I just routed it right down next to the 4-way plug that was there. I'm going to route it down inside the bumper here. And my plug is actually right back here. Just push those two together like that. And we'll go ahead and tape this up.
Then I'm going to zip tie it, and I can drop it right down inside of this bar here. And I'll just go through the hole here on the under beam of the bumper. Now in your kit, you're going to find a long black wire. It's going to have a female end with a plug on it like that, and the other end is going to be cut off. This is the wire you want to use. And what we're going to do is we're going to splice it into this green wire that's coming off of our brake switch, and it's going to go up to our 6-pole, which is going to tie into the camper or the RV. Is we're going to splice this in of the black wire. This end of our green wire. We're going to take one of our included butt connectors. It's going to be the blue one. And then we're just going to put these two wires together. Since this is going to be connecting directly into our 6-pole, we're going to cut this off. And we're going to feed it through our grommet. Then we ran all of our other wiring through here. So you can see here the brake switch wire is coming through my carpet. However, my carpet is not going in all the way. So I'm going to have to slice this down. And then we have our pulley underneath. We're going to slice it down here, get our distance right, and then we'll open it up just a little bit more for our pulley. So once I have my carpet back in place, then everything's set up, I can go ahead and adjust this here, get it tightened where I need it to go, because we want this pulley to pull this straight back when it's being used. We can go ahead and start putting our interior back in place. We're just going to go in the reverse order of the way we took it out. So now from here, you look at the back of the 6-pole, it is actually marked where your wires go. You take our black wire that was running to our brake switch inside the vehicle. We're going to put it into the spot on here marked with the A for auxiliary. Next, we're going to hook up our power wire that's running back to our InvisiBrake. So we'll just splice both of those. Split them in half. Now we're going to take our fuse. We're going to split it in half. And open up both ends. Put our butt connector in one end. And we're going to hook it to the other side of our positive wire. And we're going to hook our ring terminal on the other end. Go ahead and wrap that with some electrical tape. We're going to cut down our ground wire. Now we'll take our 10mm socket . Hook up our negative wire here. Now, then hook up our positive.
Now you want to make sure you don't insert your fuse yet. Since that one came off, we're going to go ahead and take this out. The reason for that is you don't want any backfeed going into your lines and causing a problem with your wiring. Now we can insert fuses. So now we're going to activate our InvisiBrake. It's going to put pressure on our brake pedal if for some reason the vehicle is detached from our RV. Now we don't have an RV hooked up, so what we're going to do is we're going to pull our breakaway device here, which is going to activate the brake. All we do, we're just going to pull that out. Next, we're going to run our light into our RV. What we did is we came to the engine compartment here, and I found where some wires are running in underneath the dash. Took some airline tube, pushed it through the hole, and then connected my 50-foot section of wire. It's going to have one end, the female end on it, and the other end is going to be open. And I put it in the end here. I'm going to go in the RV and pull it in and get what I need, rather than taking the whole bundle and trying to feed it through this hole out, come outside, push it in. So now inside we'll just pull our airline tube through. So now what we're going to do is we're going to strip the end of the wire here. We're going to put a butt connector on it. Then next, we need to find a place for our light. So now we'll take a 5/16 drill bit. You want to make sure that there's nothing on the back side, no wires or anything that you're going to drill into. And we can test fit the light, make sure it's going to go into place. Now we can take our included sticker, put it over the hole. So next we're going to take our circuit board audio signal. We have a red and a white wire. On the back of our light we have a red and a white wire. We're going to take these two, connect them to the proper color, and put a butt connector on them. So now we're going to take our black wire that we ran under the dash, and we're going to hook it into our red wires. Now, because our ground wire was so short coming off the back of this, I couldn't find a spot that was close enough to ground it. So all I'm going to do is I took some more white wire and I'm going to extend off of this to give me a good ground. I'll put a ring terminal on one end. You can see here, this is where I found would be good to put my ground wire. And then up right behind the light, I just bundled my wires up and zip tied them to some existing wiring that was there. This is my power wire that's running from my light in the front. You can see my 7-pole here. I'm going to hook it up to the center there so it matches my vehicle. Now our red light that we put in our dash here, when that light comes on, that's indicating that our brakes are being applied to our towed vehicle in conjunction when our brakes are applied in our RV. And that'll do it for the Roadmaster InvisiBrake supplemental braking system, part number RM-8700 on our 2014 Jeep Wrangler.